Hi everyone, my name is Tarek Shawki. I'm very glad to be here to speak to you from the American University in Cairo about a number of issues, and it's my pleasure to speak to you. One thing is that I love this institution, and it's a thrill to be back, especially after gaining an invaluable experience really in the public sector that I think has enriched me personally and added to my understanding of pressing issues. So, as you know, I have been here in the AUC before the public sector period, serving in an academic position as the Dean of Science and Engineering. Now, having had this experience and being back is a great feeling. I think can help me contribute to the university even more. So I'm very glad to be back. The counselor of the university is the liaison between the American University in Cairo and the government. In simpler language, the counselor should highlight to the Egyptian society the impact of the American University, its impact on the society at large, the role the alumni play, solve problems inside the university and issues that the government worries about. So it's the agent that manages the relationship between the American University and the hosting country government. So that's the main role. To give you an example, issues that have to do with tuition, with the impact of evaluation, devaluation on the tuition, issues related to faculty who are recruited from national universities to the American University and the renewals of their contracts, issues that have to do with the expansion of the university premises, like construction and buildings and things like that. But most importantly, it's to highlight the role of the American University to the society in which it operates. Well, the AUC is heavily engaged with the government, probably more than people know. AUC also offers, for example, scholarships to the top students in Thanawi Amma who cannot afford the university tuition. This is very important, and every year it offers full scholarships to the top students in the national education system. It also executes a huge project with the USAID for the interest of higher education in Egypt. A lot of projects, career centers in all universities in Egypt, the program called USAID Pioneers. The Pioneers are scholarships for undergraduate and graduate students inside and outside of Egypt. So a lot of training is offered by the university, a lot of English training to different institutions in Egypt. So I think the impact of the American University through the programs and through its alumni is really something that we should put the light on, because it does contribute significantly in very positive ways to the government. AUC relationship with the higher education is very, very strong and very old. I mean, it has been working with higher education over the years. That has intensified in the recent memory through a number of programs. The USAID support to Egypt is completely executed by the American University for the benefit of the government, and that comes in different forms. We mentioned the career centers, we mentioned the pioneers, we mentioned a lot of training. We also are trying to build what we call a lab school, which is a collaboration with the K-12 education. We want to host at AUC what we call an ideal school model, and use our education experts to analyze the performance of new curricula, the comprehension of students, or the performance of students to the new curricula that Egypt is trying to build. So this is a very serious academic contribution to help K-12 education reform, not only higher education. And there is also the School of Continuing Education in AUC, which offers a lot of courses in so many different fields to people in the job market. That's continuing education. The business school offers a famous Masters of Business Administration and the executive version of it. Those are very popular, and AUC on the ground is really reaching out to people, whether in K-12 or higher education or even in the job market. I think there are lots of ideas for initiatives in the coming few months. First of all, we want to host discussions, serious discussions and debates with key governmental players on different topics. We want to engage the decision makers, with the academics, with the students, in debates regarding economy at one time, environment, gender issues, governance issues, education issues. I mean, there are so many challenges in Egypt, but we need to discuss it in an academic environment, that not a politically charged environment. Just put it on the table and discuss and hear each other. Hear different age groups also. And we are a university, so we have our own students. We want them engaged in those discussions to learn and to feedback also, to give feedback to the decision makers also, how they think, what they are aspiring to. So that's something we want to do. AUC starting now to have impact outside of Egypt. We have received visitors from neighboring countries who are really interested in AUC programs and trying to find ways to expand the reach of AUC outside of the confined zones in Egypt. So this is probably going to happen soon. The technology would help us a lot also to do that, not just physical presence, but we started by having English courses online for those who want to study English on their own, and that's free of charge in Egypt. But using the same notion, we can expand our reach by offering more programs than English to those who like to have it, whether inside or outside of Egypt. So I think one of my ambitions is to highlight AUC in a grander fashion, to reach more people, to let people be aware of what AUC has and how it contributes, how it contributed over 100 years also, and how is it different from other institutions in the way it offers its curricula in the liberal arts, philosophy, in the character building aspects of our education. So it's not just pure static education. It has a lot to do with character building and teaching, imparting to our students a lot of soft skills, and that's what characterizes an AUC in a way. A university is a living entity that lives in a society. It has to really engage. So we, the faculty, the administrators, the students will learn a lot from engaging with the society. So our students learn a lot when they go out, work in the field, have training with their peers in other universities. Our faculty also benefit from contributing to national forums, to international events, and so on. So it's really through that exchange that we all grow. And so it's a bilateral, it's two-directional relationship. So we learn and contribute also at the same time, but we cannot live in a bubble. So we have to always be responsive to issues, current issues. That's what we want to do even more, in a more pronounced way in the coming academic year and in the years ahead, to have a bigger impact in Egypt and the region. The AUC, for example, was an instrumental player, maybe very few people are aware of that, instrumental player in documenting the education reform in Egypt since 2018. And in collaboration between the American University, the British Embassy, and the University of Illinois in the US, there is an oral history documentation of the national K-12 education reform in Egypt that has been published recently. AUC was a major player here. And with the lab school that will be endorsed also by UNICEF and by UNESCO, it's a continuous effort to contribute to the new education models that are suited for our children in the next century. So this is an important academic contribution that the American University is quietly playing to help the national education reform efforts. AUC can really host a lot of brainstorming sessions to enlighten people on the problems at hand in a very scientific way, in a very rational way, to describe what are the global issues contributing to this, what are the local issues, what to expect here from economists. We all see the problems, but we're not all equipped with the tools to understand. So maybe AUC can host such events and such discussions about an issue that touches everyone. And we have to talk in a language that all sectors can understand. You have to simplify it to the simple people to understand what it means to them and to their children also, for better planning, better understanding, and also to tell each one what's their role in that. It's not going to be solved by a government or by a minister or by a button. It's something we have to all contribute to. So that understanding is important, so that we understand it's our problem, not their problem, not someone else's problem. So that's one thing. AUC is working very hard really to offer or to maintain, in spite of the economic challenges, to maintain its quality, its standards, and don't put a lot of pressure on the parents by all creative ideas. And as much as people believe that AUC is probably on the expensive side when it comes to tuition and stuff like cost, but actually the cost the university charges is only a partial cost. The university complements it really from its own resources. So the cost of a student to have this quality of education is much higher than the tuition. So it's because the university has invested and it has its own endowment and so on. It complements the tuition in spite of the common belief that it's a profitable university and so on. Not exactly. We actually pay more to support each student to get the same quality as we always had. Now we have to do more of that. We have to find ways to lessen the pressure on the families, especially in those times. So at the leadership level, there are very deep discussions on that, and the purpose is to help students as much as possible. The idea of the reform that happened in high schools, that's a part of the reform, because there were two parallel thrusts. One was to rebuild the national education system from the ground up, which was completed halfway from KG until grade 6. It's already new. But parallel to that, there was a huge change in the way assessment is done for high schoolers. Yes, they were studying the old curricula, but they were tested differently, and the test was a motivation for them to study differently and look for, they were tested against understanding the learning outcomes rather than just reciting solutions to problems they saw before. And that has changed the way many of them think and behave. And also we made available to them a lot of digital resources. And you have to think of students who were deprived in poor areas and poor villages. Those students have performed marvelously. They really did better than those in urban areas, because they really appreciated the opportunity to have digital content at their fingertips and devices. And so for those who wanted to learn, we've really excelled in this. The results of the last 3 years are very encouraging. And I think, answering your question, we have to do a formal study for freshmen coming from graduates of ثانوية عامة from 2020 forward, 2020, 21, 22, and see their performance in higher education relative to the generations before them. The first indications I hear from faculty in national universities and here is that the good ones are much better than before, especially in science and engineering and such disciplines. But this is kind of informal observation, requires to be studied formally. Now, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to express a few ideas and for triggering important subjects. And let's all dream for a better future. We always have to be positive and think of a better tomorrow.